Go? Okay. So I'm Lacey. I'm one of the respiratory therapists here at St. Francis Medical Center. And we have been the ones that have been helping educate you throughout all of the northern and southern part of Denver. And so some of the NMPs that have been going up there felt like it might be good for you guys to see some of our devices and how we set them up and kind of just the process for a resource. You guys are doing a great job from what I've heard. And so this will just be a great resource for you guys to be able to have. If you're troubleshooting and you're by yourself or anything, if you have the video in your email or wherever they'll send it to, that way you can just use it and then look it up. And that way you can get through your process quicker and not feel like you don't know what you're doing. So the first thing we always start with our babies is bubble CPAP. And so I can't remember the ages that all of you guys are going to be getting. I know some of you are getting like 28 weeks and above and all that. So we don't really go by age. Of course, you guys already know that. We kind of go on how the baby's doing. And so we'll put them on, if they need an event, we do that. But what we're going to start with is just the non-invasive stuff. So this is our bubble CPAP. I believe all of you guys have it now. And we are going to set it up, show you what it looks like, and then I'm going to show you a few tips. What we did, and I know that Judy over at St. Anthony's North has done this, and maybe Kim has too at Littleton and those, but we have a little to-go kit when we're going to set up a bubble CPAP. And so this one has all of our prong sizes in it, and it has the mask sizes. And then this one doesn't have any right now. Of course, I grabbed the one that doesn't. But we usually try and keep a few measuring tapes and some extra foams on babies that either were not on CPAP long or that we didn't really think we'd ever need it for. Instead of putting it in the kit or on the room or whatever, we just pull them to the side. And then we have the extra ones here. And then in this bag, we keep all of the hats. So we have all the different sizes of hats. And then we have different chin straps that we use here. And then we also have these little cards that we keep at the bedside. And these little cards show what the baby was originally set up on. And we initial it so they know when it originally did it. And then that way you're like, I can't remember, was the baby on 45-40s before the mask or 50-40s? You have a visual right at the bedside. And we usually just tape it up here. And then we have little bags we keep in here. Of course, I grabbed the empty set of everything here there. We have these bags and we put these, and this is where we put the extra foam, the headgear measurement, all of the pieces that come so that we always have them accessible right by the bubble CPAP. And so it just makes your life easier every day when you're doing cares. We do our cares twice a shift usually. I don't know, I'm assuming that's going to be the standard throughout. And so this way you don't have to keep running back and forth to the storage room and doing all that. You have it just accessible and it makes your life easier. So when you get your bubble CPAP, of course you get your machine, you have to fill up the water on the bubble CPAP part, and you want to fill it to the line that's right here. And so we just have these sterile waters and we keep them on our device, and then we fill them up to the line. And then we will turn on the device to 8 liters. Oh, I have a leak. The reason I knew that is because it wasn't bubbling. So this is your way you always want to assess it before you put it on the baby. And now you can see that I'm bubbling. And so that is how you're supposed to initially start it and test for leaks. This, we always set ours up to start at 6, 5 or 6. And we do this because most of our babies will be on one of those two numbers. Granted, every once in a while we have one that's 7, generally not, 90% of the time, they're 5 or 6. And then your blender is right here. I don't know if you guys have these blenders on your devices with your bubble CPAPs, or if you have a different blender, or if you run it through the blender on the wall. But it's still the same blender. It's the Max Blend 2 that we use for our, see, it needs to be cal. So I'm going to unlock it. I'm going to push the cal button. I have it all the way to 21%, and I'm going to let it cal. And it takes just a minute. And now it's cal. So then I can turn it up and down. The other thing we were talking with one of the NMPs about just today actually is this little switch. When you're running it on a higher liter flow, anything greater than 3 liters, it has to be down. And then if we were to go on like a blended, we would flip that switch up. And that can mess with your FiO2 and make things difficult for yourself when you're trying to calibrate it or get it on a number that you want to have it on. So once we have all this set up, you would take out your flexi trunk, you would measure the baby's head, you would measure their nares, and then you would put the flexi trunk on and go and put it on the baby, and then you would be ready to go. So I can't think of any common questions that would go along with the setup and all that. Once we get a baby on this, we don't always wean it to 5 of CPAP, but generally we do. Sometimes we have a kid who was just needing a little bit of pressure to push the fluid up. So the goal is, if the baby's under 32 weeks, to get them to 32 weeks. They don't have to be exactly 1,500 grams, but the way the doctors look at it is if the baby's not growing well, or if the baby's very tiny and it was going to take a lot of effort and they may not grow well in those type of scenarios, then maybe we'd leave the baby on until a little bit longer. But that's kind of the goal, is 32 weeks, and then as close to, but not exact, 1,500 grams, give or take some. And then once you reach that, we would wean the baby over to our Vapotherm machine. And this is our Vapotherm. I know a lot of you have, what is it, OxyBlood? Optiflows. And Airvo 2, the Airvos are out there. This is what we use. We tried the Optiflows and we had a little more rain out at up here. We're at a higher elevation than you guys. They might not do it for you up there. I know it's not necessarily elevation, but there's a lot of factors that play into it. So this is our Vapotherm. Our goal for the Vapotherm or any high flow device is to try and run it at 2 liters per kilogram of birth weight. So if you have a 1,500 gram baby, that's why we kind of look at that weight, is because we want to be able to give the baby enough flow that they're going to be able to succeed. So if you have a 1,200 gram baby, you can barely do 2 liters, and the baby might not be getting enough flow to help them be successful in the de-escalation of care. So you want to be able to use that. So we kind of use the 2 liters per kilogram, and we go from there. So with the baby, let's say they're 1,500, we'd go to 3 liters, okay? When we get our Vapotherm kit, all this stuff, of course, makes lots of noise. It's just like our bags of water. They come like this. So we have a circuit, and then we have the cartridge that is in here. So once we get them to this, the families and the staff are usually pretty happy because it makes everybody's life a little easier. Our goal is to get down to 2 liters. However, we don't always, if we start at 3 or whatever, our goal is always 2. There's several reasons for that. We can feed the baby at 2 liters, and that is the next step before we go to blended O2. So when we set up the Vapotherm, most of you, if you've done this, have set it up before, but we're just showing you real quick in case it's a new device for you, sorry. And then we would put the water on here and then put it here, and then we would run it. The big trick that we have found is you have to plug the air in before the oxygen sometimes. It doesn't happen all the time, but I've had a few devices lately, and we had talked to a rep, one of the RTs, and I guess if you're having that, unplug the machine, plug in the air first, then the oxygen, then plug it in, and you'll be more successful. Did you want me to turn it on, Susan?
Sure.
Okay. So give me, these are the loud bags of water. Okay. So, and then, again, we'll do air first, and then oxygen. And then we will plug it in. also, when you first turn these on, the heater is like 21 degrees Celsius. I like to wait till the higher 20s, so I'm not putting a ice cold cannula on a baby and like kind of shocking it, because they go from the heated humidified air of the bubble CPAP to this. I also, if I have a baby even on room air, because it shocks them and they kind of hold their breath a little bit when you're changing modalities, I will put them on a little bit higher FiO2, not a high one, but if they were on 21, I might go 23 to 25. And you just use your judgment with that. But I do it just to give them a little bit of a help when we're changing over. So I'd go to like 23, go up to 35. We run all of our Vapotherms on 35 for the babies. And then we said 1.5 kilos. So I do went off that. So I do 3 liters. And then I'd push start. You size your cannulas appropriately. We have everything from infant to intermediate infant to neonate to preemie. You just want to make sure you have a cannula that fits over half of the nair. Doesn't have to occlude it or even fit 70%, but you don't want it to have it too small either. You also want it to have it wide enough so that it's not pinching the septum inside the nose. You'd put this on and then you'd put it on the baby and then you'd be good to go. What we do with this now is we try and wean it down to 2 liters, like I said before. And then once we get it down to 2 liters, we try to be as close to 21%, not exactly 21%. You know, like 21 to 24% is kind of a good gauge. If a baby's having a ton of Brady's and DSATs, that would be an indicator that they're just not ready. If the baby's not eating well or growing well, that would be another indicator. And then also, if you're having to turn the FiO2 up for cares, so if you're having to go up to like 30% just for cares because the baby's not tolerating it, that might be another good indicator that they're just not going to pass blended O2. And you might want to reconsider coming off of the Vapotherm. But once we get down to 2 liters, and as close to 21% as we can, then we would go to blended. We do not, even though these machines go down to 1 liter, we do not go below 2 liters on these. There are several reasons for that. One of the main reasons, however, is that our medical director had found information that the Vapotherms do not deliver an accurate flow below the 2 liters. And so to get a more accurate flow and FiO2 measurement, we switch over to the blender at this point. We usually try to go to 1 liter instead of 1.5. Again, that is because you're going from a heated and humidified device to just straight air with a little bit of a bubble passover device for humidity. And the baby sometimes will get a dry nose and get bloody, and so it's not as successful, and then we have to go back to the Vapotherm. So we generally don't do 1.5. We do it if we have a baby who's a chronic BPD baby who we're having trouble weaning and we just can't get there, and the 2 to the 1 is just too big of a jump. But generally we stick to 2 and then we'll go down to 1 liter. So we usually have a hook, but this one is broken. I just grabbed the best Vapotherm, I guess, today. But normally we would just clip that there if we weren't using it and then go from there. So the next device, let me turn it off so we just don't hear it buzzing. The next device that we were going to do, did we bring in a setup?